It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Locked On NBA. We got a lot to get into. Summer League premier matchup, huge matchup of the top two picks in the league. The Dennis Schroder signing in Boston and tampering. We've got the right guy here. I'm John Karalis, one of your regular Wednesday hosts. I host the Locked On Celtics podcast. Find me on Twitter, RedsArmy_John, joined by Matt Peck this week of Locked On Bulls. You see his Twitter handle there on the YouTube page if you're following us on YouTube at Bulls_Peck. Matt, how you feeling?
I'm good, John. I'm honestly wondering right now if since the last time we talked, we have more people that joined our camp of Giannis's block in the finals being better than LeBron's now that Giannis is the champ.
Yes. I hope that that's at least made some people come around to, if you missed that video, it's on the YouTube page. I still believe that. Time has not changed my mind. I have not tempered my feelings since that block. And considering the results, considering that it was something that helped seal the championship, that was such a huge play, I think it's right. I absolutely stick to my guns.
Yeah, we may have been the only two who were on the right side of history from the moment it happened.
From the instant that it happened. All right, tonight in the NBA Summer League, we love to go crazy about Summer League, and in this one, the top two picks in the most recent NBA draft: Cade Cunningham with the Pistons, Jalen Green with the Houston Rockets. Rockets coming out on top 111-91 if you care about such things in Summer League. But we got ourselves a premier matchup, and we saw some pretty good stuff. Jalen Green led everybody, I believe, with 25 points. Yeah, 25 points, 6 of 11 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3. Went to the line 11 times. 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Cade Cunningham's 8 of 18, 4 of 9 from 3. Did not shoot a free throw, which is kind of surprising, but 20 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. We have a Summer League game that gave those who went, Matt, a little bit of joy and happiness, and it lived up to a little bit of the hype here.
It absolutely did. I mean, if you're talking about the number 1 overall pick going up against number 2 overall pick in Summer League, that's about as much hype as you can get in Summer League, and they both delivered, man. You mentioned Jalen's ability to get to the line, but I think the thing that blew me away is just how silky smooth his catch and shoot 3 release is, man. I mean, I could watch that dude do catch and shoot threes all night. He looks like he is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I heard Doris talking in the broadcast about how he said, yeah, I want to average 30 points and win Rookie of the Year. And I was like, that's kind of boldly crazy, but maybe not impossible with the way that dude can shoot the ball.
It was, when you look at Jalen Green, you think that this dude was just built to be a basketball player. He's got all the tools. He's got everything. And you when we were doing the live draft show, Chad Ford was saying like this, Jalen Green's the sexiest pick here. Like he's the guy that's going to put the butts in the seats in Houston. He's the guy that's going to be on the highlight shows. Like Cade might be the better player. We'll see how it all shakes out. But he's not going to be what Jalen Green is. And you saw a lot of that. The kid just knows how to move. He can get to where he wants to go. This is like the day 2 of Jalen Green appreciation week here on Locked On NBA, because the guys yesterday, Wes Goldberg was just gushing about him, but for good reason. We get to see. I think it's good to get that sense right away, just from a pure fan perspective. You hear the hype, you hear all the stuff that comes up around the draft, and you say, all right, I'm in. Let me see what this kid really looks like in wearing a jersey that's, an NBA team on the front of it. And it's good to see these guys come in and actually produce. And for a couple of games now, this is their second game, and you start to see, okay, I can see why they're really high on Jalen Green. You can see why Cade Cunningham getting to where he wants to go on the floor, being that strong kind of bully ball type of player that can get to the rim, but also, I mean, off the bounce threes look really good for Cunningham as well. Like, it's nice to not have that feeling of, oh, geez, were we wrong about these guys? Like you look at them, you go, yeah, okay, I see it.
Yeah, that 1-3 that Cade had in particular in the first half, where it was like he crossed the guy up, then went behind his back and pulled it up off the dribble, and it was just butter. I mean, absolutely beautiful. And then the other thing that I honestly thought was maybe overlooked from Cade's game tonight that I enjoyed is his ability to do a little bit of playmaking as well. I think if I think he only ended with 2 or 3 assists in the game. He probably should have had 6 or 7 if his Pistons teammates could make a freaking shot. Like there were so many beautiful Cade passes where I was like, that should have been a Cade assist. That should have been a Cade assist.
Yeah, that might continue during the season.
Yeah.
This is normally I'd be like, yeah, well,
for the Pistons,
right. Normally I'd say, well, summer league's disjointed, and you're gonna have a lot of that. The Pistons might have a lot of that, no matter what. Pass to Jeremy Grant a lot, but look, you're right. You're right. The ability to drive just naturally opens things up, and Green had a couple of nice passes as well. So that's going to be something that we're looking at. Of course, there were the typical rookie things, which I also like to see. Like I like to see, like Jalen Green had an air ball. He just spin, step back, air ball, and threw a pass to nobody. And you see him like turn around and bang in his head, like, all right. Like, I like to see the flaws in there, so you don't think that, all right, it's just the guy dominating because of his natural athletic ability. That's one of the things about Summer League, that it's hard to see what's relatable to the NBA. And you're looking at some guys just play, through people, or they just play faster than people. And you say, wow, he had 30 points in the Summer League game. You're like, all right, but that doesn't translate to the NBA. The skills that these guys have displayed are the translatable skills. And that's
right.
A good thing to see, just the ability, like you said, to set a guy up and make a move to, and they're better than a lot of the guys that they're facing, but they're supposed to be. So, but it is those translatable things. And that's why the results don't necessarily matter. I don't care if the ball goes through the hoop necessarily. I don't care about the overall counting stats, though. When they look good, they're great.
Right.
It's what have you seen out there that says, all right, yeah, if he does this in December, it's still going to have that same result.
Yeah, you make a good point about the fact that the marquee names for this year's Summer League, especially in this matchup with Cade and Jalen, number 1 and 2 overall, they are right now not necessarily better players than the two-way contract guys, the guys who are playing in Summer League, who have actually maybe had 20 games here, 15 games here on NBA rosters previously, because they're just young and totally totally green, and they are expected to quickly leapfrog this pool of competition that they're playing against in Summer League, and then go on to be stars in the NBA. So you got to start somewhere. It's just don't put too much stock into anything Summer League related. Like over here in Bulls Nation, our second year phenom Patrick Williams put up 30 in a win over the Spurs today. And we were all like, oh my God, Patrick Williams, 30 points. It was like, he's going to be the 5th option in the Bulls starting lineup. So when it comes to lottery teams like Detroit and Houston, you expect that Cade and Jalen are both going to have, significantly higher usage percentages than the rookies picked in the teens and the 20s, because they're being asked to come in and contribute right away. So that, it's going to be hard to say, well, you could do this in Summer League, but then when you get to the real games and you're guarded by real NBA players and you have to guard real NBA players, what is that transition like? And clearly, over the years with Summer League, we've learned that some of the flashy big name lottery picks make that adjustment quicker and more, more easily than others.
So you're saying that I should not have said that Aaron Nesmith is the second coming of Chris Middleton after his 7 of 9 from 3-point, 33-point performance against the Denver Nuggets.
I mean, before we hopped on, I saw that tweet in my feed about your Nesmith hype game from Locked On Celtics. So I was like, oh, well, classic John. I don't blame you, man. We're hyped about the game P-Dub had over here the other night. So
I mean,
it's all part of the NBA calendar. We've gotten the draft. Free agency is pretty much over. Now is the time where we all get irrationally hyped up about whoever's playing on our Summer League roster.
Of course. That's
right.
The beauty of Summer League. And I will forget that Aaron Nesmith went 1 for 8 in his first game. And I will just say that he is now shooting almost 50% overall for Summer League. So shout out to Alperen Şengün for his 21-point performance. He looked pretty good out there.
So did
I know he's
Christopher.
not known as a shooter, but he did hit one from the logo to beat the shot clock. So shout out to Şengün, who
it looks like
looked
a
good.
good trio.
I think they did a good job. I think the Rockets draft was actually it's going to pay off. Like this whole mess in Houston looks like it's got a future to it.
It does. And, they finally crossed the finish line of getting, dealing with that horrible, ugly James Harden scenario. And then the weird, wait, are we ready to actually rebuild for real? And then what are we doing with Oladipo? And then John Wall, what's going on? I feel like they finally, for real, this past season with that tank really, steered into this rebuild. And, the look that we've gotten from all three of their first round picks so far in Summer League, I think that could be a nice little nucleus that they've just started building.
Yeah. So, hey, look, you that's what you do. If you can turn around from the Harden era and rebuild that quickly, good for them. All right, we're going to come back with the Dennis Schroder signing in Boston for the taxpayer mid-level, a far cry from what Dennis Schroder was expecting. We're going to talk about that after I tell you about Headspace. Wouldn't it be great if there was a pocket-sized guide to help you sleep better, focus better, just be better? There is, and if you've got 10 minutes, Headspace can change your life. It's the daily dose of mindfulness in the form of guided meditations in an easy-to-use app. It's one of the only meditation apps that's advancing the field of mindfulness and meditation through clinically validated research. So whatever your situation, Headspace can really help you feel better. If you're overwhelmed, they have a 3-minute SOS meditation. If you need help falling asleep, sometimes that's what I do. Pop on a Headspace wind down session and you can really get yourself into a place to feel better and sleep better. I will use it when I'm doing a show like this. So I got NBA show. I got to record my Locked On Celtics show. I got writing to do for my other job. By the time I'm ready to go to bed, it's like 2 a.m. and I'm really wound up. So that wind down Headspace is really going to help me get into a place where I can fall asleep and get some sleep. It's backed by 25 published studies on its benefits, 600,000 5-star reviews, and over 60 million downloads. So you deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/LockedOnNBA. That's headspace.com/LockedOnNBA for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. This is the best deal being offered right now. Head to headspace.com/LockedOnNBA today. Now, after you feel better with your meditation, you can head on over to built.com and grab yourself something that makes your body feel better by eating it. It's delicious. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, and there are tons of great flavors. If you missed the Rocky Road special release, then you didn't go to built.com enough. That's what they do. They drop these special flavors every once in a while, and if you miss it, you miss it. So check them out because they're all somewhere around 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. They're amazing flavors. They're tasty. They're healthy. They fit the keto diet. If you've got a nut allergy, there are options for you. They are the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. We just saw the U.S. track and field team win a ton in Tokyo. Is that related? I don't know. I can't say that they are, but I don't think it's that much of a coincidence. Go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You're going to get 15% off your next order. So grab yourself one of those mixed boxes. You can get a couple of each flavor. You can try which flavor you want. Go back, stock up on the flavors that you like. Use that promo code LOCKED15. Again, every time to get 15% off at built.com. Dennis Schroeder's long national nightmare is over. He is signing with the Boston Celtics, the team I cover, on a 1-year, $5.9 million taxpayer mid-level deal. Matt,
is it over? Is the nightmare actually over at this point?
Well, now it's moved over to Boston. He reportedly turned down the $84 million from the Lakers and bet on himself. Hey, we all like to laud guys for betting on themselves. We don't really, when it doesn't pay off, we go, oh, he was he screwed that up, which he did. I mean, you got to know the market, but he bet on himself and he lost.
Yeah. Basically the same thing that Lauri Markkanen is going through right now over with the Bulls. He bet on himself, wanted a lot more money than the Bulls were willing to give him when they discussed an extension last offseason. And another player like Schroder who bet on himself and lost this season because he underperformed. So it's not a coincidence that Markkanen and Schroder ended up being a couple of the last players left out in the cold as soon as this market quickly dried up and all the teams spent all their money. Obviously, you feel for the guy in that he had an opportunity to basically cash in on a huge guaranteed contract to stay with a pretty much perennial championship contender in the Los Angeles Lakers. As long as LeBron and AD are around, and we can make fun of all the other ancient, sagging bag of bones that they signed this offseason, but if you got a healthy LeBron and AD, you're a title contender. And right. Schroder turned down $80 million plus and the chance to stay in that franchise. And now, look, I mean, I don't what is the vibe among Celtics people right now? With clearly you have to feel good in that you got a player for pretty cheap, and in the departure of Kemba Walker, you needed some kind of answer to beef up some scoring and some punch in the backcourt, and you got it for somebody who turned down that big of an offer on a 1-year deal for under $6 million. Celtics are sitting pretty with this, right?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I like the subconscious nod to Boston by pronouncing Kemba Walker the way we pronounce it around here. Kemba Walker.
Kemba Walker.
Kemba Walker. Getting Schroder at the tax pyramid level is amazing. It's I don't want to say no risk, but it's the least possible risk without it being no risk. And I'm only saying that because I'm sure there's some risk. I just haven't seen it yet. It's a 1-year deal. So he's not sticking around long-term. They haven't sacrificed any of their flexibility. If for some reason the personality issues that seem to kind of tag along with Dennis Schroder, if those raise themselves, if those show themselves, then so what? The Celtics, in the ultimate worst case scenario, you just cut them. Or you tell them to go home, we'll trade you. We'll trade you to somebody. Didn't fit, didn't work. We'll send you somewhere if you think that'll work better for you. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is he is their third scorer. He fills a need for one season. This Celtics season is a bridge year. No one is coming back except for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And then everyone else is just kind of up in the air. We don't know. Can't say anything for sure after that.
Right.
So if Schroder is great and at the trade deadline, a team says, hey, we really, really, really need some help at point guard. Maybe somebody gets hurt. The Celtics now have a tradable asset that even if you get a couple of second-round picks, so what?
Yeah.
That they'll still avoid the tax. They can get under the tax line easily. They might be able to get more than that at the deadline. It doesn't matter if they trade away a guy who's helping them win because they're trying to sign a third star next season. I can't find the downside here for the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, I think that right there that you just laid out is actually the best case scenario. As you said, it being a bridge year for the Celtics, and then, look, do we realistically see ourselves as title contenders coming out of the East? Probably not. If that Brooklyn team is healthy, probably not. If Giannis and that Bucks team is back doing what they do, so get something for him. A guy who you can come in, plug and play some minutes. We'll see how he goes. And if he's playing well enough that, as you said, some playoff bound team out there looks at that as a piece we could really use to beef up our rotation and add a little punch, some scoring off the bench, whatever it is that they want Schroder to do, get something for him, because you basically you got him for practically nothing. I don't think, I'm not super keyed in, but it was anybody upset that the Celtics, didn't spend that money elsewhere? It's like, who's left to spend money on?
I will say, from the Celtics perspective, this has been a weird offseason because Brad Stevens was active very early with the Kemba trade, with the Josh Richardson trade, with the Tristan Thompson trade. He needed to do a bunch of stuff that was in the prior calendar year to maximize what the Celtics got back. And then free agency came and everybody was like, okay, what are we doing? And then silence for days. And everybody started to flip and kind of panic and be like, oh God, this really is a bridge here. Oh my God, what are we doing? Now this kind of settles things. People understand like, all right, this is a bridge year, but it's not a complete lost year. And we'll see how this goes. It gives the people who say we need to win no matter what, it gives them something to hang their hats on. It gives other people who know that, hey, nothing really matters this season necessarily, as long as they get to their goal of flexibility, that cap flexibility, and they can get that third star over the summer. If they can get that, then great. The beauty of this contract for the Celtics is the number, the actual tradable number, should be nowhere near the talent, the output, because no matter what you think of Schroder, and he had that one outlier year shooting, but he's still a pretty good player. I think he's still worth more than 5.9 on the open market. Like, it's a flat market. I think he can get more. So if the Celtics do decide they want to trade him, the 5.9 million is easily matched with a young guy. Maybe there's a team out there with a young guy that they haven't had a chance to develop, or maybe there's a logjam somewhere and that team says we need a veteran more than we need this young guy, and that young guy is somebody that the Celtics can take. Maybe somebody that the Celtics can take and add to that trade for the bigger star, if it works out that way. Maybe if for some reason Schroder is so good that the Celtics decide, you know what, we didn't think this was going to fit, but it's totally going to fit. His cap hold next summer is not going to be all that high. If he feels like he wants to come back, the Celtics can play the non-bird rights cap gymnastics games. Like, we can give you $7 million next year, and then we'll promise you we'll give you, as much as we possibly can the next year after that. This is kind of like a wink, wink kind of deal. That cap hold is still low enough where if they make some other moves, they can still kind of get that enough space for that third star. And now you've got the 3 stars plus Schroder. So the number is low enough where they still have a couple of other options for them. Again, just a win-win for them. But just to put it back out there into the league, a potentially game-changing trade deadline player available for the rest of the NBA. It's a storyline that I'm talking about it from the Celtics perspective, but every other team out there that has the potential to make a move at the trade deadline and add an impact player by not giving up too much, there's a real storyline here to follow for the rest of the year for the entire league, or at least the contenders.
Right. And ideally what you would love to see is Schroder ending up with a Western Conference playoff team that's facing the Lakers at some point, right? Like, that's the story that you want. That is the arc of what we want to see Dennis Schroder do this season, as he's going up, revenge style against the behemoth Lakers.
A Denver Nuggets team. If Jamal Murray doesn't come back fully healthy, like, we got to get like something like that for sure.
Maybe even the Clips, if they're still, without Kawhi and need some more punch along with Paul George.
100%. Yes, absolutely. So we'll be following that for sure, but tuck that one into your back pocket, everybody, because Schroder might be available.
Did he fire his agent yet, real quick? Because he better be.
Yeah, that's a good question. If not, there should be some discussions there about the fee. Like, the agent probably shouldn't take a fee on this 5.9 million.
No. That's pro bono right there. That 5.9.
100%. 100%. All right, we're gonna come back. The tampering stuff is popping off again, and it involves Matt's Bulls especially. So we're gonna get some insider perspective on that after I tell you about BetOnline, which is the fastest and easiest way to bet on your sports action. Go out there. You can bet on Summer League if you're so inclined. You can do that. You can bet on the WNBA when it comes back. You can bet on international sports. It's all available on BetOnline. So go on over, use your mobile phone, use your laptop, whatever you want to use. Create your username, your password, your profile, and then use the promo code LOCKEDON to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So after you do all that and you sign up for free, you pop in your first deposit, $200, use that promo code Locked On, you'll get $100 welcome bonus. So don't sit on the sidelines anymore. This is your chance to get into the game as teams get ready for the regular season. So go on over to BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Please gamble responsibly. And BetOnline does bring you the Locked On Bets podcast. So if you want a little extra help in deciding where you want to lay some cash down, make sure you're listening to Locked On Bets with your boy Q and get the lock of the day, get the wrong team favored, get Lee Sterling's expert opinion on what the biggest winners might be that day. And when you head on over to BetOnline, maybe you have a little bit of an edge. We're back with the tampering stuff in a moment. So the NBA has been looking into the sign and trade deals involving the Miami Heat, involving Matt's Chicago Bulls, and it's holding up a bit of the business of the offseason. We're trying to figure out what's happening. Mark Stein in his newsletter had some interesting insight into the way business is done, basically. And it starts off that he was tipped off about Daniel Tice going to the Houston Rockets on July 29th. And so, Matt, as a team that's under investigation for crimes against humanity, negotiating a sign and trade deal, when everyone else was doing it, it's interesting to get this insight. Now I come at this as a person who does actually want to see some of the rules enforced or go one way or the other. But if we're going to have the rules in place, then yeah, enforce them. But I'm very interested in your take as a guy that's like, hey, we're waiting on Lonzo Ball here. Did this suddenly cost the Bulls a lot more than what they paid to get Lonzo Ball?
Yeah, it's been a frustrating few days for Bulls fans to digest what exactly is happening with this, because the fan base was ecstatic about the fact that we finally have a front office that was going out and making things happen in the opening minutes of free agency. For certainly the majority of the tenure of John Paxson and Gar Forman, they never, they came close, right? They came close with LeBron and Wade, but couldn't get it done. They came close with Carmelo a few years after that, couldn't get it done. And so Bulls fans were kind of embracing this idea of, hey, if you can't beat them, join them. Because we had to listen to our executive VP, John Paxson, say a couple of years ago in response to a question on the radio here in Chicago of, what are you doing to try to get this player, that player, whatever to come? And John Paxson said, if that's not tampering, I don't know what is. And I take tampering very seriously. And we were all like, yeah, go tamper. Everyone's tampering. You're missing out. You're sitting on the sidelines. And now we finally get that switch over to the front office, and boom. We get nailed on the first move that our new front office makes that is clearly tampering. But as you said with Mark Stein's newsletter, pointing out that the Bulls were one of 30 teams to be tampering in July leading up to this, and probably even well before July, and talking all the time, the Tice sign and trade example of one that he heard 4 days prior to free agency starting. And that was the differentiating factor, right? Well, okay, if you're, announcing these signings, these agreements 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes into free agency, if it's just a player agreeing to join a team for X amount of dollars for X amount of years, okay, that's fairly simple. Call up, agree to the terms, great. The sign and trades that have all these moving pieces around, and the fact that it was posted by Shams Charania at 5:01 Chicago time, they're like that. Those are the deals where you're like, okay, clearly there's been tampering here.
Right.
But it's just frustrating to say, well, as you said, enforce it or don't. What is the randomness of which teams you're going after? Because I'm pretty sure whatever organization LeBron's played for the entirety of his 17-year career has been tampering every day of the year. It's just it just seems so random.
Here's I think there's two sets of tampering. And this isn't even really tampering. It's just premature negotiations, for lack of a better term. These are all players that are deciding their futures. And so there's nothing that okay, Lonzo Ball, we knew the situation in New Orleans was going to be what it was. They were clearly positioning themselves to get Kyle Lowry. There, if they wanted him, they could have negotiated with him. They could have done whatever they needed to do, and it didn't work out. They were in on this. That, to me, is not a big deal. Now, the penalty here, if whatever it is for not pretending, right? Like, you just didn't pretend hard enough that this took a while. And that might be Rich Paul's fault for going out and blabbing right away and being like, we got Lonzo Ball to Chicago. Like, if I was the Chicago Bulls front office, I'd be like, look, Rich, man, we want to do business with you. And I'm not trying to bust your balls here, but like, you're going to cost us a draft pick. And that to me is going to be the biggest problem. Like, how do you go? You got to go to Rich Paul and be like, well, how do we fix this? Because this is your fault. You said this, and now the NBA is going to ding us for like a first rounder or a second rounder or whatever. The other tampering, which I would have a problem with, is if Chicago went to Lonzo Ball in the middle of last season and was like, hey, you don't want to play in New Orleans anymore, do you? You want to come play for Chicago, and start putting some bugs in his ears. That, to me, that's tampering. That's actual tampering that the league doesn't want to have anything to do with. And ding them for every draft pick. Fire people, suspend people for that stuff. For negotiating a sign and trade and doing business like technically a few days before the deadline. If everyone else is going to do it, if everybody's doing it, like it's hard for me to accept Chicago losing picks because an agent got antsy over a deal that everyone was negotiating, versus if it was found out that they were telling Lonzo Ball he should be a Bull for the entirety of the season, which clearly that's not happening.
Right. And like, that is the real tampering that the league takes seriously. Is, look, teams talk to player agents all the time. Hey, what's going on with your player? What is your player think? But they cannot have that direct contact to the player themselves when that player is currently under contract with a different team. That's the big no-no. And that is maybe what the league is suspicious of the Bulls for doing, and suspicious of Miami for doing with Kyle Lowry. But the element that also applies here, that adds another layer, is the Bulls and Pelicans were engaged in pretty serious talks at the trade deadline midseason. And those talks centered on Lonzo Ball and Lauri Markkanen. At least that's the way it was reported. So maybe when the league said, okay, well, you got the sign and trade deal done pretty quickly, and the pieces involved don't involve Lauri Markkanen all of a sudden, now it's Satoransky, now it's Garrett Temple, now it's a second-round draft pick. Even if you picked back up those stalled talks from the deadline, how did you get to the new outcome and the new parameters of this deal so quickly? I think that was a red flag that the league looked at. But I also agree with you in that, look, it wasn't the Bulls front office who leaked this. Arturas and Eversley have played everything very close to the vest since they took the jobs. So much so that they had some people believing they were going to bring Jim Boylan back this past season. I mean, they have said zilch. They have been very quiet. So I know it wasn't them. Of course it was Clutch Sports. And instead of talking about the Bulls being, penalized and sorry, we're taking a first-round draft pick away from you, not only does that hurt, because the Bulls, they just sent a lottery pick to Orlando, one of two for the Vucevic trade. They also now are going to send a future first to San Antonio for the DeMar DeRozan deal. Like, those are draft capital that you send out to get quality talent to come play for you. Losing a draft pick for this nonsense would hurt a heck of a lot more, especially if it's not us that should be penalized. It's like, don't take our draft pick. Like, take away one of Clutch Sports' shoe deals. They're the ones who deserve the penalty.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like, and it's hard for the Bulls to argue that, right? Like, you can pull Adam Silver aside and say, look, between me and you, everybody's doing this. Miami did it. Everybody did it. The day one of free agency was a whirlwind. It was like a tornado ripped through free agency. And we're just like, wow, oh my God, there's so many things here. All of that stuff was done before the deadline. Like, all of it. People weren't just negotiating from the minute 6:01 Eastern. Like that's not when the negotiation started. So it's very obvious from the Daniel Tice thing to all of them. Investigate everybody. But you can go to Adam Silver and be like, we just did what everybody else did. And he'd be like, yeah. And yeah, but it was Rich Paul that it's his fault. Be like, yeah, but he didn't do anything wrong. You're the one that did something wrong. He just squealed on you by accident.
Yeah.
So I can't penalize Clutch Sports. I can't sit there and be like, Rich Paul is barred from doing business for 6 months because of this. It's the Bulls and the Pelicans who did something technically wrong. It would be a shame for them to get penalized if Miami's not penalized. But we saw from that Milwaukee deal last year that it's the league feels bound to do something. And my only hope is that it's not like first round picks, that it's something like second round picks and maybe a heavy monetary fine, but you just have to hope that the ownership just deals with that.
Right. Which, and I'm not concerned about that. Hey, Reinsdorf's, write that check. No skin
Sure.
off my back. Like, I'm worried about losing the draft pick. And, you know, I'm going to just float this to you. The third and probably least likely conspiracy theory option of what happened here and who leaked it. It wasn't the Bulls front office. It wasn't Clutch Sports. You know who the Pelicans recently hired to be a consultant for their front office and a scout? Because it's former Bulls GM Gar Forman, who was fired by this front office. So my co-host on Locked On Bulls, Big Dave, is convinced that the person who actually leaked this to the media was Gar Forman, who was bitter and wanted to jab the team that fired him and have them penalized for tampering.
That's hilarious. I would love for that to be true. I thought Clutch Sports was the one, like the Shams tweet and the Rose tweet had like Clutch Sports tells us.
Right.
But hey,
yeah.
I like your version a lot better. That's more fun.
I hate that version. I really don't want that version to be true.
Oh man. Well, we'll see what happens. Again, hopefully it's not something stupid. Like they're not going to undo these deals. It's too late for that. That would just totally.
The deals are finalized. Like the Bulls officially announced Lonzo Ball. It's a done deal. The trade has been made. Yeah. But what Bobby Marks was saying on one of his Instagram videos earlier this week that I was worried about is he believes that the league is going to come down hard on them because it was a sign and trade deal with a lot of moving pieces that was released at 6:001 p.m. Eastern time.
The shame of it is there, like, you break the rules, you get caught, and you got to pay the price. And you can say everybody's breaking the rules, but everyone's at least hiding the stolen goods under a coat. You're out there with Rolexes up your arm wearing short sleeves. Like what do you want us to do? Like the NBA really doesn't want to do this, but you kind of give them no choice, even though it Clutch is the one that dropped the dime inadvertently. That somehow, some way, I hope somebody in Chicago gets some sort of inside track on the conversations between the front office and Clutch Sports as a result of this, because Clutch is a power broker. They're LeBron. Right. It's right. LeBron. But you don't want to piss off a power broker. But at the same time, if they do come down hard on Chicago, somebody like Reinsdorf or somebody's got to be like, hey, guys, let's talk about this because you screwed us. You screwed us. And they can be like, hey, sorry, doesn't matter. What do you want to do? Not sign one of our clients next?
Yeah. Fine. Then you run the risk of potentially ruining future potential relationships with all of the star level clientele that they represent. Because it's like,
including the guy you just got.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it's a really dicey situation, and I'm fascinated to see how it goes and what else we learn about it, and crossing my fingers, hoping for the best that the penalty isn't too harsh, because it really just kind of came in over the weekend and put a giant damper on a lot of excitement in Chicago.
All right, well, you want to keep up with this, listen to the Locked On Bulls podcast with Matt. He's at Bulls_Peck. If you want to hear more about the Dennis Schroder signing, I'm going to be talking about that on the Locked On Celtics podcast. I'm Reds Army _ John on Twitter. Obviously, listen to Locked On Pistons, Locked On Rockets if you want to hear more about our first segment in that summer league matchup. Plenty of talk about those guys on those podcasts. There's a podcast for every team in the NBA. Thank you for listening to the Locked On NBA podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're watching us on YouTube. That's a big deal for us now. So go subscribe to the YouTube page. And of course, share this podcast with your friends, your family, your neighbors, people walking down the street. Scream it out your car window as you're driving. Listen to the Locked On NBA podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.